Thank you for having me for this exciting and crucial timely conference. I am Haru Ji, a media artist, researcher, educator, and a founder of the art research project Artificial Nature. Since 2007, with the co-founder Graham Wakefield, we have created immersive art installations of artificial ecosystems as a shared reality. Through this activity, we aim to shatter the perspective of humans as the center of the world and deepen our understanding of the complex intertwined connections in dynamic living worlds. For today's talk, I would like to share some context surrounding the making of artificial nature in resonance to the theme of this conference: AI, speculative realism, object-oriented ontology, and aesthetics to deliver how an artificial nature gains its ontological stance. I will start with what artificial natures are and continue to how we have created them, then to the notion of shared reality and how to define us, and finally, what our pursuits have discovered. It is my belief that our project is a strong example as a reflective realization in the midst of the era of the Anthropocene and of the new paradigm shifts in need of solving our bigger scale pressing problems such as biodiversity, climate change crisis, as well as ubiquitous data-driven AI in a mediated world. Before beginning, I want to point out that the way of building artificial nature was already resonating and connecting with themes of speculative realism and OOO. The images here are from a book magazine stream published by Philippe Chambret, the architect. The book consists of three parts: production, creation, and architecture, and it invites philosophers, artists, biologists, architects, landscapers based on the most pressing themes every 2 years. In 2018, we were invited to be included in the stream fourth issue, which is devoted to the paradoxical evolution of our relationships to the living in the Anthropocene era. You can find Graham Harman and Timothy Moulton, renowned OOO philosophers, in the same book. If you are curious, you can check more information, including interviews or some chapters from their website. This context helps me to deep dive with more confidence into my project for this presentation. Artificial Nature is an installation services and research project by myself and Graham Wakefield, creating a family of interactive art installations surrounding humans with biologically inspired complex systems experienced in immersive mixed reality since 2007. And here, interactive for us, it means complex systems of many feedback loops. For building artificial nature, these questions: what is life, what is intelligence, and what is reality, took very important parts. It is also worth mentioning that these questions in the contemporary time are becoming more difficult to answer. What is interesting here to me is that it becomes more difficult to answer when it seems we get to know more or to see more closely. And I think it's also important to pay attention to what this difficulty tells us about what is a unique defining difference of our contemporary time. These were the initial motivations of the Artificial Nature project. First, it begins from life. Life as an infinite game whose goal is to continue, rather than a finite game whose goal is to end. Second, art as a continuation of life. In John Dewey's term, art as experience. Lastly, it is to connect from life and the living to art, and art to the time which is passing or is about to come. Now I will move to the section to link what to how by presenting the series of artificial nature installations. Here you can see 5 example artificial nature projects. Here they are among the phylogenetic tree or genealogy of many more artificial natures over the last 15 years. Each artificial nature work has presented experiences of nature as it could be through immersive worlds in which participants become just another component within a complex ecosystem. This links the generative open-endedness of biology and computation binding into art experiences. We are committed to the underused potential of computational media to pair immersion with deeply responsive interaction to develop worlds which can reach new novelty and creativity like evolution in nature. This is what I've observed from this genealogy. From the earliest prototypes to the most recent artificial natures, many features, properties have been recurrent and in time intensified. Those features and properties include natural user interface, multimodality, multidimensionality, open-ended dynamic system, real-time feedback, dissipative system, complex adaptive systems, artificial life, generative art, experiential art, immersive installations, shared realities, endogenous notions, world making in a flat ontology, and non-human intelligence. However, new works often needed to relinquish properties, not because they are not important, but to make a room for new ones to grow. It was not intentional, but when I reflect on it now, it was inevitable. In our first prototype, we aimed to find the simplest base components in creating an artificial living system. From the beginning, we created not individual creatures, but an artificial ecosystem, because the dynamics of the environment are just as important as the populations of living beings it supports in mutual feedback. We followed principles of thermodynamics in energy conservation, exchange, and decay, and the importance of being far from equilibrium, especially life as a unique negentropic example. Here, the colors of the environment pixels are the chemical nutrients for the creatures, and the colors of the creatures are their genes, determining how they move and reproduce. Here's a simple translation of the same system into 3D by turning the environment into topography. This is not a visual effect, but what you can see here has a meaningful ontological role in the world. The bright color means more energy. The height of the land determines how quickly energy is replenished, and the slope of the land determines the direction of diffusion. Now, populations seem to compete for the peaks for more food sources. Infinite Game was the first international exhibition. There had been many other prototypes, such as generating sound, finding forms, moving toward higher dimensional expression, and so on, to complete this work. From these early works, here are what we have discovered. First, we found behaviors are more important than forms. Second, we need to choose modular approaches. It is something like Lego blocks with limited components, how to combine them to create immense variety of outputs. However, unlike Lego, they are all continuously interconnected. So when you touch one, you change all. The third, step-by-step discovery. So at the final assembly step, there are wow moments for artists themselves, because we couldn't see the whole until the last step. It is a very different way of making compared to a more traditional way of art making I remember as a sculptor. I thought of how Michelangelo said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." This doesn't apply here anymore. Also, this is a nonlinear system like all other living systems. It is irreversible and contingent, so the next moment can be seen only when you are close to it. Finally, it is a dissipative system. The world can continue or can die off. Here you can see more diagrams and installation layouts to clarify the components of the system. From this early work, we explicitly chose to consider the existence of this artificial ecology as equal with our own. So when we prepared a camera and mic in our interaction design, we considered these sensors as their organs to let them see us and listen to us. They see and listen, and we move, and we touch. These were our initial seeds of thinking about curiosity. Anticipating the notion of shared realities with non-human beings and examining how we can define us beyond us. The diagrams show what the world is made of and how its components flow and interact in infinite feedback. There are at least three strata. They are pseudochemical, biological, and multisensorial. Indigeneity is a binding theme throughout our project. Indigeneity means coming from within. For us, this means that every perceivable element must have dynamic ontological capacities in the world, playing an active role in multiple processes with other elements. This means we can see the world's interrelations through its behavior, like how we see wind by the way it moves the tree leaves. So, for example, in this artificial nature, we see the fluid by how it moves particles and everything else. Indigeneity also means that the world is able to autonomously originate, that visitors become part of the ecosystem through immersive display and through interactions and agencies that induce presence, and that as a result, interaction can lead to exploratory discovery or playful exploration. To help illustrate what we mean by shared reality, I would like to introduce our Conservation of Shadows exhibition. This work has created in the site-specific context of a heritage building as an exhibition venue. The former grounds of the Korean Center for Disease Control, which is now an expansion of the Seoul Museum of Art. One motivation was to bring a speculative life in superposition to our world by imagining beings that have been residing in the building and bringing them to life in the space around you. Moreover, we wanted to show how virtual reality doesn't have to mean an escape that takes you away, but rather can be even more tied to the multiple layers of the reality where you are. Softly bringing motor-actuated miniature bells surround the installation space, hanging down from the rafters at different locations and heights, varying in intensity and creating a variegated spatial sonic experience whenever invisible beings pass by. The shadows of these invisible beings mix with our own shadows as we walk crunching over the salt bed underfoot. With a head-mounted display, what first appeared as flat shadows on the salt are now unveiled to be alien creatures moving around and through your space, responding to your movements and gestures. But now, you have become the shadows in this world, and you can also sense the dark shadow volumes of other human visitors too as they obscure the creatures. For conservation of shadows in the ZKM, we used similar physical format with sounds and shadows working as a bridge between physical and invisible realms. This time, the primary behaviors of the creatures are driven by curiosity. Metallic black snake creatures search and respond to the movements of you and other humans, and they leave behind trails as they pass. When they can't find any meaningful change, if you stand still or leave the exhibition, or simply if they get bored, they move away. Curious energy also makes them search quickly and their skin shines gold. Boredom makes them slow, conserve, inflate, and float into the lighter air above. The smaller boatfish creatures are searchers and builders. They search for and then follow the trails of the black snakes, as well as the shapes of humans, spinning threads of fluid mycelium fiber as they go. Their different colors, which flow into the fibers, show how they follow or search. The fibers continuously follow each other and reweave themselves among each other, sometimes forming long paths, sometimes closing into loops that remain behind, enduring as longer-term dynamic memories in space. We hope that the curious nature of this world awakens us to the weirder and wider nature beyond the human-centered world as we know it. Here are some outcomes so far. First, artificial life has been a central theme from the beginning. However, it became clearer that it was not about a life form, but about an ecology, because a life form can't sustain itself without its surroundings. Second, life and non-life both are constructed of the same atoms and molecules. Then the difference must inhere in the structure or organization of these atoms and molecules. This is why physicist Erwin Schrödinger described life as order from order. For creating a dynamic near-living art as a system art, the invisible structure and organization became more crucial. Third, I didn't know the term speculative realism before this conference. However, I'm happy to find that this broad and young term also includes artificial nature. My art practice asserts that an entity can exist before its language. I remember with thanks to Marcus Novak, my professor in UCSB, who always urged us, make it before you know it. Fourth, shared reality here is not between humans, but including human and non-human, as us, because of our interconnections, which have been built, challenged, and survived beyond human histories. Also, we assumed a flat ontology as a necessity to develop the Artificial Nature project, denying hierarchical division between analog and digital, real physical and virtual, nor human and non-human. Fifth and sixth, when we build on artificial nature, it stands as its own world, having its ontological stance with its own physics and biology in multimodal and multidimensional senses. Here, beauty draws from a more biological basis, as we often observe in nature, and therefore how something looks is less crucial than how it works in its own world. Nature, or artificial nature, is not an object to appreciate, but a system to understand deeply. As an artist and researcher, I think we should shed light to the unknown, to reveal the invisible and bring them into the realm of the known and the visible through curious experience. We think this is critical for creativity, for evolution, and for moving forward into a more open future, healthy, vast, and wild. We think this is urgent today in the context of AI that is mostly trained on past data to study anthropocentric measures. We don't want to live in a future already paved by the past. To understand this better, we have been exploring more curiosity-driven or creative AIs and also experimenting with applying generative AIs in non-conventional ways. For example, here are two test images, both using our own generated 3D geometry to guide the generation of the AI imagery. Our first goal here is how to incorporate generative AIs into a larger process of dynamic and ecosystemic art. The other goal is how we can generate in different specifications beyond the conventional use, such as generating very long and large sequences of images to show the growth changes of forest. We are experiencing many challenges because this is a task where lesser data is available. For example, since we can't directly take pictures of roots on the ground, the pre-trained AI can't generate them, so it keeps trying to turn roots into trees' branches. This reminds me of how the vast majority of generative AI results are about humans, especially beautiful young people or pets, buildings, spaceships, and cars, and so on. There is a very real risk of positive feedback here that can narrow our world and our future, just like an echo chamber. The word for word is forest is the title of Ursula Le Guin's beautiful science fiction book. So, what is your word for word? Our word for word is forest too, a healthy, creative, and wild one with rich interconnections. This is the future we are hoping for. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to sharing your thoughts.